Today I'm in the building here with Mikey, aka Mr. C-roc. Came all the way here to the studio. I appreciate you coming by, man.
Good to be here, man.
Real quick, why don't you tell the audience just a little bit about who you are, your background story, and what's kind of shaped you to get to where you're at today?
So, Mike C-roc, my friends call me C-roc. I started a movement called the What Are You Made Of movement, and I run a mortgage company in the Mid-Atlantic and Southeast Florida. Mortgages are boring. So I started sharing my story with people and trying to find out what people are made of, because I believe everyone has a story and people don't share their stories. So there's a couple reasons that people don't share their stories. One, they're embarrassed by it. Two, they don't think anybody cares. And the biggest one that I feel, and I've felt this stuff, they underestimate the power of their story and how they can inspire millions of people. So I came up with What Are You Made Of movement because that's a term or a phrase that I use for myself to get me through tough times. And it all started back when I was about 11 years old. I came from a broken family, like a lot of you guys maybe, and I don't remember my parents ever together. And so when I was about 11, I was living with my dad for 3 years, and I went through a lot of mental and not physical, but mental and psychological abuse. And I had to get the hell out of there. So I decided to do that. I told my mom, filed court papers, went through all that stuff. Well, at one point, my dad came in with the court papers and said, "Hey, looks like you want to move in with your mom." And I said, "Yeah, I got to get out of here." And I didn't understand what the word culture was at that point, but I knew that an environment needed to be conducive for happiness and growth, and that just wasn't it.
Even at 11?
11 years old,
yeah.
Man. I was pretty mature at that age, just from some of the stuff that I went through leading up to that. And so my dad was my hero, right? And you guys might have dads that are your heroes, but he always had this wad of $100 bills in his pocket with a rubber band around it. And he had a masonry brick company, and he was really successful, but he was really tight with his money. So I always looked up to him for that wad of $100 bills. He always flashed it and stuff. So
that was his signature. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
So he came in and said, "Looks like you want to move in with your mom." And I said, "Yeah, I got to get out of here, man." And he took a $100 bill out of that wad that I looked up to him for, crumpled it up, threw it at me, and said, "Here, you're going to need this when you're living on the streets with your mother one day." And at 11, I was devastated, just totally destroyed that my hero told me that. But I remember one clear thought that I had 30 some years ago, and I just thought to myself, I can't be the only one going through this. People have given up on other people, their dads have given up on them, and I was gonna show people that you can get through something like that, and I was gonna help people. One, by being a role model and showing how you can get through something like that. And this is at 11, I remember this as clear as day. And then the other thing is that I was gonna help people. I was gonna do something. I didn't know how or what, but then it took me till I was about 40 years old to figure it out. And so I started the What Are You Made Of movement to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I can relate with you. I know other people can too, even in this room, just with the father figure. It's funny how it's always the father figure too, right? Like when I was 9, dad leaves, younger brother, step family, other brothers, mom, and it was just a mess. And I mean, to this day, he's just been in and out, said things that are just completely not acceptable, but you have to use it as that fuel and motivation, right? To push forward and continue to find inspiration from it. And I think what you said too in the beginning of, sometimes you think your story is so generic or it's not that important. It's something that I don't really share often myself, because I personally just don't want people to feel like I'm using it for leverage in any sort of way,
Yep.
So I've kind of always just put it, down here and just not really talked about it, and just use it as that fuel inside.
Yep.
So.
Well, and I thought that for years and years and years. And I'm 42 years old now.
Yeah.
You lose count after 40. But the thing is, one thing is that people feel like that, and I want to encourage people to get it out, because it's going to help other people.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to use it as a victim role, and I don't ever use it for that reason. But I want to help other people. When I started telling this story, it's amazing the amount of messages, phone calls that I've gotten from people telling me their story. They said that they wanted to share, but they just didn't have an outlet, and so I'm just blown away by that now. And
you were speaking it with confidence rather than that submissive, try and get people to buy in or feel bad for you. It was speaking in confidence of, hey, I want you to be able to relate to me. So, I think another thing too, what you mentioned is you wanted to figure out a vehicle to kind of be able to help people, right?
Right.
Now, a lot of times people have a hard time finding that vehicle. So for you, what was that vehicle? Because you always need the vehicle first before you can help people.
Right.
Sometimes people try and just help other people without having a vehicle.
Right. Well, what I found is, and first of all, that story seems like it's ordinary to me because that's what I grew up in. I don't know any different. I don't know of like family togetherness,
The
right?
picket fence.
So when I didn't share the story, because that's normal to me, then I started realizing how powerful it was. So the vehicle, first of all, I try to help people all the time, but I never related it back to that until recently. And people weren't as receptive to me trying to help them. So I started using that, and now people are more open and receptive to it. And I started the What Are You Made Of podcast about a month ago, and have been putting my story out there for everyone to see, and things that have come from that story. And now I'm starting to have guests on there to tell their stories. And they're lining up to come on the show.
Yeah. Do you think being more transparent has also helped with the mortgage business as well?
Absolutely, man. I mean, it adds credibility to us. It shows we're real people. And I work at Nations Lending. One of our taglines is making home loans human. So perfect alignment with that.
Yeah. So tell us more about What Are You Made Of movement.
So I'm going to push this thing as far as I can go. I want to make it a worldwide movement. It's gaining momentum. And my whole thing in any kind of business that we do is to get a snowball going. And if you think about a snowball, it starts small and it rolls in snow, it gets bigger. And even gravity can't stop it, because if you think about a snowball in a mountain of snow, it goes down. Gravity's pulling it. Usually gravity's a bad thing, but gravity builds a snowball up.
Yeah.
So I want to get a snowball going with it, share it with people, and just get everybody speaking about it and just going nuts with it, man, and use it in their life and their business.
I know it's somewhat new, but what's the overall purpose, right? What's the 1 year target or 3 year target, or what's the goal for it? Is it strictly just to inspire people, or is there I see the apparel. What are some things you're going to be adding to the brand?
Well, so here's the thing. So branding is important because it's business, right? And I want to monetize it to take care of my family.
Yeah.
So there's, first of all, always help first. We have servant hearts, but then obviously we're going to monetize it, make a business out of it to take care of my family. And then once we're solid, then we can help other people too.
Okay. So you just said, you say it like so subliminally and people might not even hear. You said we have servant hearts.
Yep. My group at Nations Lending and my team at What Are You Made Of movement that's how we're operating. That's our primary objective, and we've always been like that. And the more help that we give, we seem to do better.
Do you think human beings, like at the core, have servant hearts, or is that something that you've all had to kind of train yourself and build?
Man, I don't know.
Because that was strong when you said that.
You know what?
You kind of said it and kept going, but I want to dig a little bit deeper.
I think that, it might have to be something that's ingrained in you, either through your parents teaching you that, or going through some kind of traumatic experience as a younger kid and picking that road. I don't know that it's natural.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm not a psychologist.
But it could be built, worked on.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's something that, by the way, mortgages that we use, like for our business, that's our vehicle, right? To make money for our families and take care of the bills. But we're really in the people building business. And that's the way I look at it. And then when the What Are You Made Of movement came about, it aligns perfectly with that. So my employees that work with me, we have 30 employees, we really work on building them as people in their profession and at home. If they're having kids at home, we want to make them better parents the best way we can. So that's something that we really focus on. And then the mortgages is just a
it's a byproduct.
Exactly.
It's what fuels all of it. Do you know Brandon Dawson?
Yeah.
Okay, so he talks about personal and professional financial goals.
Yep.
Until I had met him and kind of started learning from him, studied a lot of sales tactics, and it was very transactional, right?
Yep.
We're all young guys here, and our mission was like, let's just get revenue so we can get this business growing, blah, 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 and we kind of forgot about the people part of it.
Absolutely, man.
And
so huge, man.
And the business part is like 30% of it.
Yep.
And then the the personal goals and all the other goals, how you're acting outside of work, how you're treating people, this, and this.
Yep.
What is your biggest advice so that you can kind of master all of those traits and get outside yourself a little bit so it's not transactional?
Well, first and foremost, so I learned this back in 1998 from a mentor I had. And I always listened to him, but then I listened to Brandon talk about that. Grant talked about it too, as far as your people's problems or your money problems, their problems. So I started to relate that back to old messages and lessons I learned from my old mentor. And so really what it comes down to is having empathy for people, okay? And knowing that their problems that they're going through can affect the business anyway. So why just focus on transactional when all that stuff affects the transaction?
From a customer and an employee standpoint?
Just
humans in general.
Both standards, yep. So we offer a lot of free advice to real estate agents that send us their business, or we're trying to build relationships with them on how to build their business and ways to attack their business. And it's just free advice that we give them to help them out to get started. And then all of a sudden, our business just starts blowing up naturally. We don't have to focus on growing the business as much.
Yeah.
It's crazy because we sometimes lose sleep at night focusing on trying to grow the business. Like you said, building revenue.
Night.
You've been there probably, right?
I mean, yeah.
And you probably still are to some extent. But when you start focusing on the good things and the right things, all the other stuff starts to multiply. It's just it's a magical thing.
So it's easier said than obviously done. And when it's done, it's all mental.
Right.
Your thoughts and what you're thinking and then what you're saying. Mm-hmm. So what is your advice for being able to stay positive? And a lot of times people are out there, you know, if you're watching this, you're like, well, I need money. I need it to be transactional because I need money. Like I can't just be positive because that might not result in me getting more money. So what's your advice for kind of having that medium?
Well, first and foremost, I always am very intentional with whatever I do. So, and I know Grant talks about writing your goals down every night, every morning, all that. I've already did that before. And when I wrote things down, they magically happen because it's like festers in your mind and starts to formulate. Every thought, vision, word, everything you do starts going towards whatever you wrote down, whatever your commitment is. So if you want to help people, write it down, commit to it, and write it down every single day. And again, I did that before, and that hearing Grant talk about it, it just reinforces it, and it gives me permission to do some of the things that I was already doing, because it's like, it works for really successful people.
Yeah.
Right? So my advice is to be intentional and write things down and make commitments to whatever it is you do, and you'll be successful.
What are some of your daily goals right now, or weekly goals? Like, what do you tell yourself?
Well, first and foremost, I'll tell you exactly what I write down every day. Honor God is the first thing I write down. Be Hui, which stands for Husband of the Year, and Fui, Father of the Year. My friends tease me because I'll say something I did at home, and they're like, "Oh, Husband of the Year."
Yeah.
Hui. So I write that down and I write down I am Husband of the Year. Because that matters to me, right? And so I want to remember that when I go to work and start getting into the trenches at work. I want to remember that part first. Then my team, we want to do $100 million a month in loan volume. That's a lot. Like that doesn't happen for a group like our size.
That's a billion.
So yeah, we were doing $4 million a month last year. We went to $15.5 million in 1 year after I started writing this down. Me just personally, and then I told my team to do it, and then all of a sudden, 400% growth.
The thought processes for everyone shift.
It's amazing. The culture changed just because I started writing this down. And so that's one of the things I write down. The podcast, top 10 podcasts, that's written down. Best-selling book, Amazon, New York Times bestseller. That's in the works right now. The book, What Are You Made Of, with Mikey C-roc. I write down a lot of things. I want my wife's real estate business to take off, so I'm helping her with that. She's a realtor. So those are some of the things that I write down every day. Besides like physical stuff, I work out like crazy. I'm trying to get down to 190. I'm trying to get cut 190. I let that go, by the way. So there's some things in your life when you're focusing on things that you want to accomplish, some things sometimes slide. So I always like to do a self-assessment every week too.
Yeah.
And take a look at things and say, hey, what am I sliding on right now? Like I know that I'm human. I'm going to slide on some areas if I focus too hard. But if I do it once a week, I can keep that shift back.
Keep it within
It's not balance. Screw the word balance, but like I like to keep things in check.
It's within a range, not a year goes by and all of a sudden you're way off. Yeah.
Right on. So that's my advice.
So what is it? Maybe a month ago, I think we started working together. Maybe a few weeks ago even. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we got coffee, met through social media. Yeah.
Yeah.
Through. It's got to be through Grant's network.
Yep.
Somehow.
Yeah. The 10X
just
movement.
connected through a direct message. Brandon got connected with you, and then we all met up and got coffee.
Yep.
Power of social media. Insane. And I think that's kind of what you're seeing and what you have seen and why you're pressing the What You're Made Of brand through social media. So what importance do you see social media having with not only your personal brand, but this new company and brand that you're pushing out?
Yeah, so first and foremost, you guys got me through it. So that shows you something right there. So as soon as I see that, like, oh, they got me, it must work. The hook works, let's go. So then when I find something that works in business, I throw gasoline on it. That's just the way I've always been. So our company, Nations Lending, is very good at social media as far as getting like home buyer leads and things like that. and branding is good as well, but I don't think that they push it hard enough. So individually, I've been telling my team, we got to get out on social media. We got to get known. The more you're known, the more money that we're going to make, the more business, the more help we can help. So I started doing it as a role model, actually. I started
just
doing
like you did with the goals, though.
Exactly. I was telling them to do it, and I'm like, well, how can I tell you to do it and be good at it if I'm not doing it myself?
Yeah.
So I started making a commitment. I wrote it down, and every day I do it because I want them to see it. And so if they can see it, or if they can't see it, nobody else out in the world can see it.
You're using your team as motivation for you to actually push every single day.
Absolutely.
Like
Right
you
on.
want an audience
Yep.
so that you can perform and show up every day.
I need results from what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So they can see it and they're like, oh shit, he does know what he's talking about.
100%.
That's what it's all about.
So
and so the other thing is my son's watching, my wife's watching, my daughter's watching, everybody's watching. Not like Big Brother watching, but people watch you all the time, and you got to realize that. So when you have a decision that comes your way, and you're like, should I do that or should I not? And doing it's the right thing, you got to remember people are watching to see what decision you make.
Yeah.
So that's what's always running in my head. And a lot of the stuff that I talk about on my podcast or I'm saying here is stuff that I beat in myself all the time, man. I'm hard on people, but I'm harder on myself.
yeah.
So that's the motivation behind it. I want to be a role model. And it goes back to that story, remember, if I told you, is that I want to help people, show them that they can get through things. And so when your father gives up on you and you can make it and be successful and more successful than he is, then it lines up with all the other things. Hey, guys, do social media. The realtors will see it. Your buyers will see it. If you're more known, you're going to sell more loans. Okay, they don't want to do it. Okay, I'll do it and show you.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, it's a no-brainer to me. You know, social media, it's the only place where you can go actually connect and be seen by hundreds, if not thousands of new people, you know, sometimes even hundreds of thousands. I think the internet and social media, it's still very young and it's still developing, and people have a hard time understanding that they really can be seen by hundreds of people. Yep. Just because they're not liking your stuff or messaging you does not mean they're not watching.
Right on, that's exactly.
And people will watch you for months, years before they take action themselves on doing something with you. I've seen it hundreds of times over the last 4 years.
You've probably done it yourself.
Yeah. And even with the brand, you know, like people are like, hey, I've been following you for 3 years. I want to do something with you.
Yep.
3 years.
Yep.
You know, imagine if you gave up on it and that connection or partnership never happened. So
the other thing I want to point out is I stood in front of realtors and I would try to put events on. And one realtor sometimes would show up and then 50 realtors and then 3, this and that. And I'm like, dude, why am I doing this? I get on social media, I'll pop on my computer, right? I'll pop up live video on Facebook and all these watchers start coming up. And I didn't even have to plan the event.
Yeah.
So I'm like, this is stupid. Why am I doing these in person? Now I'll still do those, but
more strategic.
This is like a no-brainer. Then when I post something and let's say 10 people see it, 10 people. It's just like having an event that I planned out and only 10 people showed up.
Of course.
So that's the way I was looking at it. And then the other thing people make a mistake on is if they post something one time and they think that people saw it, they don't post it again because they think everybody saw it already.
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking to myself, you know what? I'd rather post it 4 or 5 times, the same exact thing, and let people that see it 4 or 5 times be annoyed by it, and more people see it.
Than to miss out on people that maybe not.
Exactly.
We are so in the trenches every day of what we do, right? Like, you're very aware of what you're doing. I'm very aware of what I'm doing. We forget, though, that the people watching us, they don't know what it is that we do.
Right.
Even if we tell them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times what it is that we do,
Yep.
they still don't fully understand or will remember. People are being sprayed from thousands of things a day, right?
Exactly.
And they're seeing so many different things. So showing up every day on social media is so important. It's something that we all have to get better at. Like, you and I should both be on TikTok. We should both be putting up, we both need to be doing more.
Right.
We both need to be putting out more content.
Well, and one thing that I do when I work with someone, and I'm paying you guys to work for me, right, is I wake up in the morning thinking of this. I want to be a case study for you. Like my thing, anytime I work with Cardone University, I told them the same thing. I have a lady I'm publishing right now for my book. I want to make you guys look good.
Yeah.
And that's my duty to do that. So I wake up thinking that every single day. I'm paying you to do this, right? But in turn, I feel like I'm working for you guys and I'm pumping for you guys because if you guys are successful, that means I'm successful. Does that make sense?
That's an interesting outlook. Most people don't look at it like that. A lot of times Whether, I think a lot of service-based businesses, right, when people hand over money, they think, okay, well, they'll just get it done, right? It's kind of that traditional, like, I'll hire a marketer and he'll just do it for me.
Yep.
You're kind of the opposite. You're like, okay, now that I've invested, I got to show up more now. I got to put more effort in. So what would you recommend to people that maybe if they're not even working with a team, or if they're looking to work with a team, you know, or they're launching a brand new brand, what is that piece of advice?
Well, first of all, you always have to look for win-win situations, right? You can't have it one-sided. It's not going to work. I don't care if you're paying money for someone to do it. You still need to be involved and engaged in it. If you're not, it's not going to work. And you're just leaving things out on the table. That's number one. And number two, if you're doing things by yourself and you're afraid of investing money into someone, you're thinking, I'm not going to give somebody else money. You're really talking about yourself. Like, I'm not going to give myself money. Because what you're doing is investing in yourself, your brand, your business. And it's not going to grow. There's no way it's going to scale or grow unless you do that. So I always recommend people start with one, hire somebody before you think you're ready.
Yep.
Every single time, and I've done it and it works.
So with social media, because it's not a stock market, right? It's not a Forex exchange market, put in $100, get $200 back. How do you view the investment when you put money into your personal brand?
I mean, you know, you can look at ROI if you want to with some things, but as long as I'm engaged and I start to see some kind of growth or some kind of indicator that it's working, there's got to be some kind of the snowball effect.
Yeah.
There's got to be some kind of momentum being built. If it's not, then you just stop and you redirect, or you make sure that you look in the mirror and make sure, am I engaged enough in this? Am I doing what it takes to help make this successful? Because you guys can do the best job that you want in the whole wide world, and if I'm not engaged and I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing, it doesn't work.